Welcome to session 4. We're talking hybrid ministry. Welcome everybody. So what is hybrid ministry? Right now, as we're dealing with thinking about going from congregations functioning completely online to being able to phase back into gathering physically on site, say when you're building, other places, kind of juggling the digital and physical gathering. People are talking about that as a hybrid approach. So in this session, I wanted to share some ideas with you, some ways of thinking that I'm working with that I hope will inform your planning, your strategizing, your innovating. And the first thing is, I don't like the word hybrid because it's kind of conjures this sense that, oh, we have to do these two things, and it's like, I think about hybrids as like mythological beasts fusing together different creatures, and really, I think it's better to think about it in terms of we are leading congregations in a context, in a culture that right now, 21st century, is very, and has been for a while, digitally oriented, and the digital is really just part of our context in a necessary way that we need to be connecting people, communicating, and really fulfilling your mission. So it's not like the digital is this other thing and we're now we just have to accept that digital is central to how we function as leaders and congregations, communities today, and figure out how do we integrate all the pieces. And of course, right now, there's a challenge of COVID-19 pandemic and being forced to be all online. But I like to think of it like the pandemic forced congregations who weren't online barely at all to move fully online. And now our challenge is not how do we get back to the state where we're not using digital at all, but how do we really land in a place where we are balancing the digital tools, physical gathering in a way that's going to serve congregations long term. And of course, all of this needs to be taken into context of what's possible in terms of public health and safety. So you have those considerations, but I just want to walk through some ideas for you to think about. And really, this is just the beginning of the conversation. I'll be sharing a lot more via social media and trainings over the coming year, months and year and beyond. My training, Video Ministry Academy, is a skill training and strategy masterclass for those of you who want to learn how to use video, especially shorter, simple video messages to bring your ministry more fully online. You can check out the links in the description around this video if you want to check that out. You can either sign up to enroll or get in the wait list. That's one of my primary trainings. Video Ministry Academy, yes. All right, so let's talk as we start thinking about how does your congregation balance doing what you've been doing online with doing more as you're able to weave in physical gathering. How do we think about this? First, I want you to really, as leaders, like board, other committees, maybe you start with just yourself if you're a solo minister, really do an audit or listing of what does your congregation do in terms of your programs, services, your offerings. We really need to map out what it is that you've been doing, what are you called to do in terms of being of support and service to people. List that out. All right, you have to start with a list because then your challenge over time is going to be, or your calling over time, is to be looking at that list and figuring out of all the different things that we are called to do, the ways we can be of service, where does it make sense to offer that? In this digital space, in this physical gathering, in a park, on the campus where a building is, on a lawn? Are there things that can be in small groups that meet physically sometimes but Zoom others? Are there some things that are ideal for being on-demand classes? So you need to look at what are all the things that you offer. Once you have that list, and I know sometimes it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I know what we offer, but if you don't have a list, make a list. Because over time, your leaders, I hope, will work more collaboratively to start figuring out how can we adapt and adjust and really customize what you're hoping to offer for this kind of combined online and offline options. Once you have a list, start thinking about what are the different spaces we have where we can offer programming. And now we're not just talking about physical spaces, but I want you to think about digital spaces, different social media platforms, Facebook groups, Zoom meetings. All of these are really functioning as digital spaces. All right, so you can think about the different spaces, rooms you have where your building is, in your sanctuary, a chapel, classroom or meeting room A, B, C, D. There's also outside on your lawn or whatever is available outside around your building. What other physical spaces do you have at your disposal? People's homes. If there's a time when people are able to meet more safely in smaller groups, people's homes are spaces. Their yard might be a space. Then there's also, if you're encouraging people to form relationships, to have conversations, do mentoring, friendships, whatever it is, your list, meeting people in public spaces, out in nature, those are all options. But we need a list of what are your offerings, what are all the different possibilities for where you can gather, and then we can start helping your leaders get creative in where they're meeting. In terms of digital spaces, we have, of course, Zoom meeting. There's Zoom webinars, Facebook groups, Facebook pages. There's places where we can broadcast. There's more apps now and platforms like Mighty Networks where people can create groups and gather people. So many options. But the most important thing is start thinking about digital spaces as really gathering locations that you can be very mindful about. Where do we choose to be, depending on what it is? And knowing that some things that you're doing, especially things that are small group based, small gatherings of people for sharing, reflecting, discussion, can toggle between meeting online and meeting offline very easily. That's why I love small groups. So you're starting to start thinking about digital spaces. One of the reasons that's important, long term, and we talked about this previously, the trend is as churches come back and start meeting, attendance is not what it was. And attendance will not be just magically the way it was before. Things have changed. People have changed behavior, preferences, attitudes. Then there's all the health concerns. So most congregations, especially I think smaller congregations, thinking of you specifically, really need to think that if you're going to be sustaining the level of facility and budget and also staffing and also trying to have the same impact in the world that you previously had, you're going to need to have a combination of people who are gathering physically and members who are really gathering and participating in ways similar to pre-pandemic, but you're increasingly going to need to have members who are completely or primarily online. I think that's just a trend that we need to expect. So that means optimizing congregational life for members who are online all the time and members who are kind of going on and offline depending on what it is, and those who really just want to be doing the physical gathering. So that means we need to start really, as leaders, talk about are we on board with that? Can we embrace this notion that we're going to have members that are completely online, those who are trying to meet mostly offline, and then combination? Can you wrap your mind around that? Can you get oriented with your membership process, people doing different greeting and hospitality functions? We really need to, as leaders, sit down and gather on Zoom or wherever and have the conversation. Do we accept the fact that longer term, we need to make participation in congregational life something that people can do completely online and have that be full participation in congregational life with membership, and how we're going to make that happen. The first step in that down that path is, I think, your leadership having conversations and saying, yes, we recognize this is where we need to go long term, that especially in the immediate, I don't know, is it year, 2 year? I don't know how long the pandemic's going to keep large numbers of people from wanting to gather or just safely being able to gather, but we need to be ready for it. So that's a conversation your leaders need to have. If you start moving towards thinking about, all right, we're going to have members who are just online. Well, I think it's important for you to start thinking about all the digital spaces, I mentioned that earlier, the digital spaces as kind of forming almost like a digital campus. So think about, you have your physical campus where your, say, building, sanctuary, other meeting spaces are, your primary campus, offline, but then you're going to have this digital campus made up of, it's all of your different digital spaces, Zoom meetings, Facebook groups, whatever you have. And I want you to think about it as a campus, because if you had a whole new property, suddenly a second location offline, well, what would you need? You need people to make sure it's functioning, it has toilet paper, that there's security, that there's greeters, there's leadership, all these things. Well, with an online campus, digital campus, we need to make sure that we have people who know where all the different spaces are. We're able to communicate where those are. We're able to welcome people, greet them, lead in those spaces. And so when you start thinking about that, that feels like a lot, right? I know it does. But so what we have to do is, I think, we have to be having conversations, I've said this before, with your members and friends about these issues. One reason is we need buy-in, we need to hear concerns, challenges, etc. But also, as you're talking about the vision, leaders can step forward and you can identify people who are really excited about the potential of using these online strategies, gathering in all these digital spaces. And so what we can do is, if you start communicating with your members, friends, and of course your leadership about the longer term direction of having online members, people who are gathering in various ways, and the need to have an online campus kind of approach, you can start identifying people, all right, who are the members and friends who are, their preference is as soon as possible, as much as possible, they want to be meeting physically offline. Who are the people who are like, I want to be offline and online, kind of a mix. It depends on the circumstances, depends on the thing. Those are probably the people who are local, but are a little more cautious maybe about gathering. And then there are people who are like, hey, I want to be online all the time. Why? I live in a different state. Or maybe there are people who have health concerns, various reasons, or maybe just as you're doing more online, you can create services, programs, offerings, community, small groups, such that someone who might not be able to participate in a weekly service at a set time can participate in congregational life. But if you start identifying who has the preference for the physical gathering, who is definitely 100% online, then those in the middle, you can start organizing teams of people to help support those different initiatives. And I just think that having the vision, all right, we're going to have online members and people who are looking to gather physically, and there's our traditional campus offline, but we have a digital campus, and we have leadership and volunteers to help make those things be exciting and really represent full participation in the congregation. That's going to serve you long term. I want to talk language for a second. I got a great question about using the word live, because a lot of you are talking about, when we do worship, how are we doing? Are we doing live worship or other kinds of worship? And so I think it's important that as you're planning, discussing amongst yourselves as leaders, you're very careful with your language around live, because it can mean different things to different people. So I think we can talk about live as being any time there are human beings presenting, leading, offering some kind of experience where they are right there with people, whether it's face-to-face, offline, physically, or online, say via Zoom, where you're all participating at the same time in some space, the Zoom, sanctuary, whatever. Then as you are talking about the different offerings you have and how you're going to set it up, we can talk about 3 things. To start, schedule, when's it happening? So this date, this time. Location, where is it going to happen? Is it in our sanctuary? Is it in our sanctuary and Zoom? Is it our sanctuary, Zoom, and Zoom pushing the video feed live out to Facebook or YouTube? There are platforms like StreamYard that let you broadcast to multiple channels. So you could do, we're in our sanctuary. This is going to be a worship service held in our sanctuary, and it's going to be broadcast via StreamYard to Facebook and YouTube at the same time, and our Facebook group. So we can just talk about the different quote location, but we want to make sure you're including the digital spaces. Then last, think about format. Format in terms of, think about a television show. Some television shows are pre-recorded, others are live. So is your format for whatever offering, worship service, something else, is it a live experience or is it pre-recorded and available on demand? Increasingly, we can use different content on demand to support people's learning, offer different courses, classes. A lot of it just people wanting to learn information, learning about your congregation, your faith. Some of that can be done just via on-demand video content, on-demand Q&A sessions, say that were presented live, but then available. So format-wise, have live. You can have live with a recording available so people can get the replay on demand. And then we have just from the very beginning, pre-recorded and then published. So I think that language is helpful. Now, let's talk worship. Some of you have been offering worship services completely pre-recorded and broadcasting via YouTube or other platforms. Some of you have been doing live worship services, broadcasting from your homes using Zoom. Everyone's in their different spaces. Other congregations have been meeting, having people gather in their sanctuary and pre-recording their service from the sanctuary or doing a live worship service from the sanctuary. I know not all of you are in the sanctuary yet, and the question is going to come up, how do you start transitioning, whenever it's safe to do so, from being the majority of people being online participants in worship to getting back into your building? And I just want to, at this point, have you think about a concept that if you go from, how do I say this? If you go from, all right, we're all meeting online, and then you say, hey, we're gathering for worship together in our physical building again, there's going to be a rush, I think, to undo all the learning and the culture of, hey, we can reach people online, we can live stream, we can be visible, we can have a larger impact. And I think the rush of people want to go back to the way things were, and the culture of doing your online live streamed or broadcast worship, I think those needs can fight with each other. So if you're not in your sanctuary yet, or maybe even if you are broadcasting from your sanctuary, as you're moving from primarily online participation in worship, and you start thinking about getting into that building, I want you to think about having an intermediate step where before you are thinking about everybody trying to gather in that sanctuary for worship, which I think isn't going to happen in terms of trends, that we can think about, make the next step be having people in the sanctuary who are working to, or whatever space on your facility, your campus, that are working to create a worship service and share that, broadcast that, almost like that's the studio from which you are doing a larger online ministry, a larger broadcast. So first step, don't just invite anyone who's interested in physical gathering to come and be part of that first group of people in the sanctuary. Instead, if you think about that, like, all right, we are moving kind of the studio location from being at homes via Zoom, all of our leaders in their homes coming together via Zoom to offer worship, to we're going to start doing it from church, from your congregation, your physical building. Make the people who are participating in there have all of the first wave of people coming together around that being people who are committed to your online worship experience. I kind of think of it like, if you ever watch late night shows like The Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon, or others, you have a broadcast going out to thousands and thousands of people. The people in the studio are gathering in order. Their mission is to make that broadcast a success. So you have Jimmy Fallon, you got the band, the Roots, and you also have the studio audience and all of the people who are supporting that production. Now, we're not doing a show. It's not just a show, right? Worship is not just a show. But we are creating a worship experience, and if a large number of people are going to be participating in that experience online, maybe more people online than in your building, and I think that might be a good thing to strive for. More people participating online than are in your building from now on, just generally speaking. Use the tools of our time to communicate, reach more people, grow your impact, change more lives. Then what's happening in your sanctuary and all the people supporting that are dedicated to making that the most amazing experience for people online. And in doing so, especially when you start, you may be doing things like you have cameras right in the middle of the room so that you're filming everything up close. Your worship leaders are looking into the camera, and everyone knows we're filming this. This is online. And you're figuring out, how do we connect this so that people maybe are able to participate on Zoom with chat or however you do it. But just know that it's not, hey, let's get back into the sanctuary and forget everything else. We really need to work with our members, our leaders, and be talking about the longer trends that, for your congregation, not all, but probably most, that your health, success, vitality, and really fulfilling your mission, if you look at that mission, of course we want to use the tools of our time, all these communication tools, social media, live streaming, video, etc., online courses, who knows, to really transform lives. So I think that is our charge. Talk about recharge, that our charge is not to go back into the building to a pre-pandemic world, which we can never achieve, in a time when we didn't have to worry about digital tools at all, and we can be all closed and insular and just gather in a small little family. No. We are in the 21st century with these tools, with digital devices everywhere, for better or for worse, and our charge is, our calling, I think, is to use those tools with intention and purpose to have the greatest impact and transform as many lives as possible. Not all of you are called to do broadcasts that reach people around the world, but you can use the tools, these video tools, live streaming, social media, to be the most amazing local congregation you can. And I think that if you prioritize your online worship experience and working with your leaders and friends, members and friends, to figure out how can we create the best experiences, the strongest small groups, the healthiest, most exciting spiritual exploration, whatever it is that you offer, through a combination of online and offline groups and using different spaces, discussing that in collaboration with them, that if you really prioritize that, having these conversations, who's online, who are online members, who's the team helping to lead our digital campus in a coherent, exciting, positive way, and make it this exciting, bigger thing that you're working on together with, at the heart, digital first. That's going to result in your having a more exciting, vibrant congregation. It's not like turning how do we digital, I want to go back the way it is, and get to this point where you're not not communicating, not welcoming people in, you're not doing, offering a good, coherent digital path to membership, just something I talk about in my trainings, digital path to membership, important. If we're really thinking about digital first, I think that gives us the opportunity to connect with people in such a way that we can end up having thriving local gatherings as we're able to physically in the same space. So the better you do the digital, the more you embrace the digital and be the best local church you can be, local congregation, using the tools well, offering a full online experience, full membership, and offline as you're able to, the more you make that digital first a central part of your mission and strategy, I think the more likely it is that your congregation will thrive during these times, and you will end up having a congregation that is more in line with our hopes and desires for face-to-face gathering. But rejecting the digital, trying to go back to the way it was, I think is going to lead to a death spiral where you're not doing the outreach, people aren't quite ready to gather, it's not safe, your leadership's, everyone's fighting, horrible. And I don't want that for you. So those are just some of the things I want you to think about. Thinking about, what's in order to fulfill your mission, what is it that your congregation does? Have that list. Really get detailed. Let's just do an inventory. What's been promoted through your newsletter over the last couple years? Like, just do a brainstorm with people. Talk about how can we offer things in different spaces, getting creative offline, getting creative online. You can't have just a small, tiny number of leaders do this well. You really have to involve your congregation and members in the creative process. Thinking about, what can we offer live? What should be on demand? Not everything needs to be offered live. Some things, you can record it once and then have it be serving people forever. We have to be intentional. I think knowing people's preferences, online, offline, combination, if you can start identifying those preferences, at least for now, can always change. I think that's going to serve you, especially as you work towards developing different teams, right? These people are working to really make sure that we're safely gathering. These are the people who are working to make sure that we have a thriving online community and membership utilizing a digital campus kind of mindset. And altogether, I think that's going to serve you. Now, this is just the start of the conversation. I have no idea how long the pandemic is going to force us to stay, to keep us from gathering face to face. I love congregational life. I'm married to a minister. I've spent my whole life, like every week, gathering with people face to face. I miss it. And then all the things during the week, it makes me sad that we're not able to gather. I just wanted to say that because some people are like, oh, Peter, you're all just digital. I'm like, no. Everything I've done with the digital is to help connect with people and bring them into relationship through small groups and great congregational programming experiences, ministries, justice efforts, face to face. So just know that I love congregations, love congregational life, and our gathering. But for me, recognizing that the digital trends are not rolling back, that people are fully plugged in, connected to their devices, we need to recognize that and use those tools. And the better we embrace that reality and use the tools well and involve people in a collaborative process to figure out how we can be of service and accomplish our mission through these tools, the stronger and healthier we're going to be and navigate this time when we're trying to juggle online, offline, this hybrid, complex dance. So those are considerations for you. I have a few asks, questions, invitations for you. One, I love your comments. I've been interacting with a number of you via email. Also, those of you commenting on the post, that's really helpful. Your questions help shape the content that I create. And in addition to my trainings, in this little series, I'm always doing live strategy sessions, like free videos via YouTube, Facebook, podcast. So share your questions with me. I just love to be in touch. On my website, peterbowden.live or www.peterbowden.live, there's a question box link at the top. You can always submit a question. You can always reach out to me. Just know that your questions, your ideas, your stories, your challenges, all that stuff fuels my work and helps me be of service. 2, if you are someone who's doing amazing work and you're like, hey man, we got this figured out, I would love to hear from you, because there are ways I might be able to help share your story, online video interview that can be of service to others. So maybe we can collaborate. Then last, I'm always offering training as a congregational consultant and a television producer. For me, video is at the heart of our online strategy. So Video Ministry Academy is a great program for those of you who want to figure out how do we use video to engage with people throughout the week and involve them in congregational life. How do we start building a digital path to membership? How do we use video to engage people with our websites and understand how they might fit into congregational life and beyond? So check out the link in the video description. I'm running that. It's an on-demand program that's offered. I kind of run it in classes so that I can do live Q&A sessions to support the on-demand content and learning. So you can either enroll if it's open, or there'll be a link for the waiting list. And so the more we can keep in touch, the more I can know what you're wrestling with. And through the combination of content that I'm putting out publicly for free to support congregations, through maybe our collaboration, and of course participation in my trainings, together I just hope we can really keep learning and growing together and be of service to your congregation, your community, and collectively support one another as leaders. So thank you for being here. Thank you for joining Leader Recharge 2021. As we wrap up this video, I can take down my balloons. My 2021 balloons were just for the series. So thank you for being here. If you found this series helpful, share it. Share the link to the sign up page, and I look forward to being in touch soon.